Okay, so I'm trying to generate sort of the game world here, and it's going to populate a width by height array with either, presently it's just going to be either dirt or nothing. So if I just return this, this doesn't do anything yet. So you want to say something like this, and this just returns the two-dimensional array width by height of whatever this terrain type is. Terrain type is just dirt for now. So the next thing we want to do is what I was already doing previously. I think I'm going to create another, so I'm going to split it into two pieces. There's the world generation part, which is what this is doing right now, and then there's what this commented code was doing before, which is actually placing objects in the world, physics objects. So if I go back here, there's the generator, and then there's the this is going to confuse me later, but I'm going to call it builder. And all I know right now is this is definitely going to need the world object. I'm going to move this somewhere else. Yeah, okay, that wasn't a very, I should have just typed it in. Okay, anyway, so this game world builder will take this as input and do the stuff. It'll populate the, it'll construct these objects here. So we don't need the width and the height passed in because we already have it, because it's just in the array. But I'm going to keep it around for reference for now. Then we want for each indexed, and then we want here W and column, because that's sort of representing a vertical slice of the array. And then for column, we want to say the same thing. H. And then we have our actual terrain type at this point, which is nullable. It might be null. Yeah. So we don't need to do any of this conditional stuff because theoretically this will be handled on the game generation side. So instead, we need to do this stuff. This can go away. And in game world generator, I need position. Well, I really need all this stuff. everything that's not being currently used. Yeah. So I'm just going to go over here, and I'm creating a vector or a position up here because it's nice to reuse it for all these different calls. I don't need to dispose that. I do need to dispose the shape. Okay. So here, what was size? Oh, size was being passed in. Let's keep passing that through. It's really sort of scale, but size, whatever. Size also works. Okay. And width scale was previously part of the calculation. That should actually stay. I mean, right now it's just like a solid block, basically. It's sort of frustrating that it's having trouble with that type. If I comment this out, it complains that it's requiring the nullable type, but it's getting the non-nullable type. Okay. Well, it doesn't really matter that much because this I will be returning null some of the time. But right now I can just say like, never, because I haven't figured that part out yet. So if I remember to paste this, then this will eventually come in handy. But right now it's just solid. You give it a width and a height, and it just fills it all in with dirt. And we can inline this. Yeah. Okay. We have our game world builder over here, but we're not using it yet. But this looks I'm not sure. I think I'm also gonna, I don't want to pass in too many arguments, but I'm also gonna pass in a offset. So this way I can say offset.x and offset.y. So at least it's like the game world builder shouldn't know whatever sort of arbitrary offset like we want to shift the entire world by. Okay. So the next thing we have to do is to use this, and we want to use it in the same place that game world generator is being used. We can also get rid of this world. We don't need it anymore. Terrain type we should also promote out of the class at some point. Okay. I'm gonna leave this. I'm still gonna leave this here because it'll be handy in a bit. Yeah. So I need to add game world builder, and it's being used in game initializer. This was formerly the scale or size. I'm not going to call it world because that's confusing because that's usually the physics object. Whatever. It's a grid. I'm going to call it world grid. And I can call it whatever, terrain. So I'll pass in a world grid here for the terrain. There we go. And for offset, I was previously just using one in the y directory direction, but I can just use let's just do 0 for now. And normally in Java, if you have like a lot of arguments, it's just sort of just a blanket anti-pattern because you have no idea it's hard to tell what it's actually doing because you don't have named arguments. However, Kotlin does have named arguments. So to me, if it's not obvious like what the parameter is going to be, like You pass in terrain, okay, that makes sense. But these other things are sort of arbitrary. Anyway, so if I pass in vector2, 0, and size, what was I using before? I think it was just 1. That was the thing I deleted from here. Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, IntelliJ. That's not super helpful. Okay, thankfully it was pretty easy. The Kotlin support is still relatively new, so I guess I can expect a few bugs. Offset equals vector2, 0, size is 1, size is 1, and that looks good. 200 is really, okay, we can just see the screen. Okay, well, I'm inside the terrain. I'll just, so let's see, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there's like 5 or 6 of them on the screen. So instead of doing 200, let's do 50. Let's just do 5. 5 high. Okay, well, this looks alright. Got my little jumping action. It's still a double jump sometimes, but that's okay. It's just a lucky jump. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is make this sine wavy again. And so to do that, so I was thinking about this, like I was just sort of stumbling through this before and not really thinking about it. Like trying to figure out how to make the sine wave work the way I want it to work. But I think it's really not that hard. So let's see. So the number of, if you think of an entire, I mean, you're probably familiar with what this looks like, but you have a sine wave, and the entire length of the sine wave is 2 pi, and so we need to figure out on our screen is like roughly, it was roughly 50. So if we want one wave to fit inside of the width of the screen, like normally the width of a wave is 2 pi, 6.28. And we want it to be desired number of waves is just 1. And so we want to stretch this one wave over the entire width. And so okay, I'm having a little trouble reasoning through this. Like, I'm sure this is super easy, but it's a little bit hard to think about. So I mean, I'm pretty sure I'll get the division or the multiplication inverted. So normally it's 2 pi, which is roughly 6, and instead we have 50, and so we want it to be a lot. So it naturally needs to be larger. So if you're expecting a positive, it's going to be a positive scaling factor. And so we do width divided by width of wave times desired number of waves. So this way, if you desire twice as many waves, the scale I guess it's going to get more packed. Let's not worry about desired number of waves right now. So now it'll be like 50 divided by 6.28. So that's that's not what I meant. It's going to be about a scale of 8. But we don't, inside of our sine wave, we don't want to do, like, if you look down here, if you do math.sine times 8, it's going to be a very, sort of compressed sine wave, and we actually want the opposite of that. So we want math.sine within the inverse of this. Well, we could just divide instead of multiply. So here we say if math.sine, we know we want it to be divided so that it's stretched out instead of compressed. And it wants it to be a double. You know, I think actually, yeah, this has a sign, and it's a float. Sign table. Okay, whatever. I'm not going to use that for now. I want to use something that I know for sure definitely works. Which, you know, I'm sure it probably does, but I don't want to try to understand it right now. And so this is going to generate a value between, it's going to generate a value between 0 and 1. Well, negative 1 and 1. So our current height, like in our, I mean, if we want the waves to be as tall as the entire shape, we can just say height divided by, or h divided by height. And then this way, well, this will be sort of weird because you won't have negatives. Like this will always be a non-negative number, whereas this actually goes negative. So it's not going to be quite right. Hey, that didn't work at all. Okay, so the easiest way to sort of just resolve this is to jump in here. Oh, wait a second. I'm a dummy. I want to use width scale. Yeah, width of wave isn't going to work at all. Okay, no difference. Let's try this to see what's going on. So both of these are 0. That's expected, and we're at effectively this first coordinate over here. So let's see, w, which is 0. So is 0 greater than 0? So no. Yeah, because no, it goes wraps around again. And now we're at sort of the width 0, width 1. Yeah, width 1, which is like here, and height 0. And so w divided by oh, sorry, this is gonna be boring until width is something other than let's say when width equals 5. Okay, so width is 5 and height is 0. So when W divided by width scale, 5 divided by 7.9. Let's add some watches in here. And map that sine of W divided by width scale. Convert that to a double. Yes, no? Okay. Not feeling like it. Okay. Slightly smaller number. And here we have h divided by height. So it is higher. Okay. Okay. Well, it didn't look like it. Okay, stop. It didn't look like it was. I mean, it executed both branches, which was sort of a surprise to me and encouraging. But if I look over here, okay. So here's the obviously here's the problem. I'm just unconditionally putting terrain in, and I'm not going to differentiate between dirt and other types right now. Okay, well, let's say switch or when. You know what? How about if terrain type not equal to null? I'm a fan of using switches for stuff like this, but I don't actually know if they work with nullables that well. Can I say can I say null here? Well, that seems like that might work, but that's overkill right now. So I'm just going to say if it's not null. So now maybe it'll look slightly like a sine wave. Okay. Making some progress. At least it's a sine pattern, it's just the y-axis is really not happy right now. So we have a height, and it goes from 0 to height, and we're trying to map this sine wave onto that height. So the first thing we want to do is bump up the entire sine wave by 1, because negative numbers aren't really gonna help us. So we can just do +1 here. And that will shift up the entire sine wave by 1. And then for our current position, well, let's just see how far that gets us first. Okay, not very. Okay, let's just leave this. One of those should have worked a little bit better. Anyway, so this sort of scales us from 0 to 1, whereas this, if we add 1, is scaled from 0 to 2. If we multiply by this will also be scaled by 0 to 2. Okay. This is one of those frustrating things that, like, it seems really simple, but it takes some amount of fidgeting to get it right, and then once you get it right, you're either super obvious or you still don't quite understand it. I like background scrolling is also sometimes sort of like this. Sometimes the easiest thing to do is just stop and like pick up a pencil and just sort of draw it out. Okay. So height is 0, and so this will always be higher than that. Maybe. I guess it has to be +1. Yeah, okay. Okay, let me think about this. So if the height is too high, if h is 1, or not 1, if h is equal to height, then we shouldn't be drawing anything. And so the higher h is, the less likely it is that this will be true. So that's I think this sign is correct here. Math.sign is, I mean, it results in the y value, so it's always going to be between -1 and 1. I mean, so you put in the x value, and the return result is the y value. And so you do want to shift everything up by 1, I think. I'm sort of hopeful this is really close. Okay, let me set those breakpoints again. I can make this conditional on the other branch being hit first. Another breakpoint. Okay. One of the things that's annoying with Kotlin is if you use any of these special lambda methods, if I do step over, it's not going to go in here, it's going to skip over the entire method because it's a method call, it's not a for loop or something. So you gotta set those special breakpoints. So here we're at 5, 5, and which is you know, directly diagonal. And so the resulting y value is 1.58. So if it was 0.58, it's like I don't know, it's like this point on the line. And so let's see, h divided by height. Oh, is this doing integer division? Yes. Curse you. Okay, so the problem is, I think, come on. Okay. So the problem is, this is always 0. Because this is an integer, and this is an integer. Because width scale is a float, it's a float, which is right. This is an int, this is an int. So, okay. Well, let's try this again. Hey, it's the exact opposite of what I want. But at least it's doing something. Every time I tried flipping this sign, it hasn't worked out for me, so maybe I should stop trying. Hey, well, maybe I shouldn't. Okay, well, that was more complicated than it should have been, but here we are. We have our dumb little mountain thing. And if we want to make it like, if we want to make it bigger, or if we want less spacing between the hills, I could just brute force this. This is either going to be on the top or the bottom of this equation. Let's see if I can be smart about this. So the larger this number is in here, so the more hilly, the tighter the function will get. So to make this number larger, I need to make width scale smaller. And to make width scale smaller, I need to increase the size of the divisor. Okay, so that's not going to do anything. But if we change it to 2, hey, that's looking about right. And this might look silly, but if we change it to 5, Now you get lots of little mountains. Okay, that looks ridiculous. Let's change this back to 2. Sorry, I got a text. Okay, alright, so let me commit this real quick. Get rid of all this commented code. I want to do the height scale at some point, but not right now. Oh man, I sort of conflated a couple of changes here. I want to stage these for sure. And that's part of a separate change. Okay, so this was we're basically splitting out game world generator into game world builder, which actually places the physics objects. Whatever. And I mean, this is. I'm sorry. And this is just because I don't know. It's good separation of concerns, but it means that like game world generator can implement an interface, and we can swap out or combine different game world generators and just feed it all into the same world builder. If there's eventually mods that wanted to change the way the world is generated, this is pretty sensible. The thing I was working on before was making it look less like crap. So the plan was to use JunglePack 35 to render in the middle of each little, each of the ground tiles. And one way I could solve this is to have entities for every single tile here, but I don't know. It seems like it'd be certainly convenient, but I'm not sure. I think I'm not going to do that. I mean, so the reasons to do it is I can just reuse all the existing just draw logic already, and I can just, like, I have an entity, it has a transform, and it has a texture, and the con is now you have like thousands of entities, and you need to ensure that they all get drawn. I'm a little worried about this being premature optimization. I'm trying to see if there's a way to deactivate an entity without removing it. They're scheduled for removal, but that's a little bit different. So, and the reason why I'm thinking about that is, like, if you have 500 of these things, that's not terrible. Except, there's only ever going to be 500 like on the screen. If you wanted to sort of phase them in and out, like if you divided up the entire world into chunks that are the size of your viewport, then any of these chunks, there can only ever be a maximum of 4 on the screen at a time. Like either you're directly centered on a chunk like it is now, or it's sort of like a 4-corner situation where you have, one chunk here and another chunk here, and then 2 chunks there, and then you can see all 4 on the screen. Really, like, if each one of those chunks was a single entity that just stored all of its state, that wouldn't be so bad. Like, then you only have like a couple dozen of them in the entire game. This is sort of a tough call. It's very important. I think for now, Yeah, you know what? I'm going to do the wrong thing right now and just say, and just create an entity for each one. I'll probably change it later, but I want to get something on the screen as soon as I can. I might change it immediately after. I just want to see it and validate that it sort of works. I don't know what I'm doing. This should be an engine. Okay, so for each one of these, we say engine.add entity, and well, we need a transform component so that we know where to draw the thing, the image. Right, I want the entity because that's normally what it wants. Entity.apply, yes, that entity. I don't know why it has to ask you which entity it wants. Like, it tells you in the signature which entity it wants. Anyway, I want to add this thing, and we also want to add the. Well, I guess it is a physics component. And the body is returned by this guy. And ta-da! Okay, so that's most of it. The last and most important part is the texture component. And we have our texture. It is... we need to inject this guy, and then it's going to be dirt inner, because it's the... there's going to be different dirt on top of the soil. It's going to be like this, whereas in the middle it's going to be, well, I don't know why some of them have rounded corners. I guess it's just for edges of the soil. You can put it, you can like maybe sort of render this corner and not and then render these corners. I'm not really sure exactly what they had in mind for that. Anyway, so this will be the top, and this will be the middle, or the inner. So for texture component, we want to say, I'm going to grab that thing. Ta-da! Okay. Oops. So one thing to be careful of is because this is being sort of, the binding for this is being auto-generated by Juice. It doesn't know whether it should be a singleton or a prototype or not. And by prototype, I mean it's constructed every time you request it. And basically, you have to say singleton, otherwise it'll new it up all the time, which is no good. Okay, so we have our asset manager, and it's correctly labeled. So now we can say asset manager dot dirt inner. This is probably going to be the horribly wrong size, but let's see what happens. Hey, it literally buries the player. So the problem is it's way too big, and so like we don't texture component doesn't have a way of dealing with this. However, well, however texture region, just because the way it's set up right now, if you look at the rendering system, it looks to see if it's a texture region, render it, and it actually looks at the scale of the transform, just for texture regions, because it's easier to draw. Anyway, so back here, dirt inner, let's, I can just copy it, I guess, even though this is the only place we use it. We can just say texture region, and eventually this will be like a texture, like eventually we'll sprite this into a sprite sheet, and then it actually will be a legitimate texture region. But right now we're sort of just, like this constructor, it just sets the region to the entire size of the texture, which is fine. Certain parts of LibGDX's documentation is really good, or decent, and other parts are just like, hey, this is the one constructor that's not obvious how it works, and they don't provide any like they just didn't add JavaDoc. So I'll have to go like reverse engineer it every time I want to use it. Anywho, so instead of dirt inner texture region. Oh no, our texture component doesn't like that. So let's change this to texture region component. And transform component. So transform component has two constructors right now. The main constructor has position and angle radians and scale. And the secondary constructor only has position. That's what we use most of the time, but we want to use, we don't really care about angle radians, but we do care about scale. So we can set angle radians to whatever, 0, and scale needs to be set to, I'm sure there's a more precise way of doing this, but I think a quarter is fine. Hey, a quarter seems like it's always the right answer. I don't know why. So it looks crappy, but you know, it looks less crappy. Something else I could probably do, well, is instead of just scaling it down, you could actually just sort of clip it so it's smaller. But then it's a repeating texture. I don't know if it actually, there's no guarantee that it would actually look right. Though it looks pretty, I mean, it might be symmetrical down the middle. It already looks sort of tiled. Anyway, so this still looks like ugly because there's all these green boxes from the physics crap being rendered. So I'm going to go to physics debug system and, well, I don't know, that's one way to disable it. The other way to disable it, I guess there's these little commas here that are sort of annoying. Sorry. Okay, and now it looks like, okay, yes, it looks terrible. I think the main reason why, well, there's two main reasons why, three main reasons for why it looks so bad right now. One, there's no lighting. Everything is a uniform bright shade of light, and like the underground soil is as bright as the upper soil. And one of the coolest things in games like Terraria is just the lighting seems really extremely well done. They spent a lot of time on that. And here's what it looks like when there's no lighting. Other things, there's no grass on the top, which sort of sucks. And also, there's no background. The background's pretty easy. I was thinking of just throwing this one in there for now. Yeah. So I sort of want to. Hold on. Let's commit this for now. Let's say a very basic ground texture. So, I mean, I sort of want to handle, like, normally I don't spend that much time worrying about graphics. Like, that lighting, like, fixing the lighting, I'm probably not going to worry about for quite a while, because it's really just, you know, it's a blocker to, like, shipping the game. Like, no one would pay for a game, probably, if the lighting was just bad. But, I don't know. So some sort of graphics like that are not that important. On the other hand, like having a background and having not all the dirt, all the terrain be a single type, it's sort of important. Like from like a morale perspective. Anyway, so long story short, I'm going to put grass on top of the ground, and that was actually one of the reasons why I split out the generator from the world builder. Was now you have up front you have the entire grid of the game world. So you know this is why this is nice is because now in the game world builder you can say if for any given tile, if the tile above it is absent, then you can do something different. So let's say, you know, val has tile above me, and we just want to look at terrain. Width, height +1, not equal to null. And I'm pretty sure this is just going to throw an array index out of bounds exception as soon as I run it. Ta-da! Shocking. So we're going to say if height is less than terrain width dot length size -1, then it checks for that. Otherwise, if it's at the very top already, let's say, well, I mean, if it's at the top, there's nothing above it, so there should be grass there anyway. I don't think we actually go up that high. Okay, well, this isn't... Okay, so it's not crashing. That doesn't really prove anything. So what we want to do here is we have our dirt. Thinks it's unused. We have our dirt inner text region here, but we want the grass one. The grassy one is 05. So the other thing you can do is notice how this sort of has the curve on the left side and this has the curve on the right side. You can say if you're on the top and there's nothing, you know, if there's nothing above me and there's nothing to the left of me, you can draw this one instead. Like, that's pretty trivial to do. Well, we're not going to do that just yet. Dirt top. Let me make our methods for it. Oh my gosh. All I want to do is rename this one thing. And not that one thing. Dirt top texture region. Okay. Okay. No, wait. We want to say if as tile above me, do this. Otherwise, yeah. Okay. So in the interest of reducing duplication, I want to say val texture region equals if has tile above me, then asset manager dot one. Otherwise, if there's nothing above me, then paint some grass in there. So something else that you could do is, like, this is during the world builder phase, and you could do this during the, somehow, maybe, it would be sort of complicated. You could do this during runtime, during the render phase as well. However, this is actually a better place for it because if you do it at render time, that means as soon as the player destroys a block, the block below it immediately gets grass on top of it. And that doesn't really make any sense. So the game world is a little bit more static than that. So initializing it in a sort of upfront static sort of way, it's not terrible. Okay, so let's think about this again. If has tile above me, so if I mean, because we're doing h+1, we want to do size -1 here. We might want to do size -2 here. I don't know, off by 1 bugs. Oh, fine. I guess I'll follow the directions. Oh, I don't know how this got renamed. Anyway. Okay, so now we're loading. I did not do a very good job copy pasting. Okay, everything looks about right. Hey, look at that. It's starting to look like slightly less crappy with every change. Okay, I know this is super minor, but I sort of want to fix those corners. super minor. Sorry. I'll go as quickly as I can because it's the same exact thing. Left top, right top. The left one is 03 and the right one is 07. And we're going to do the same thing here. Ta-da. Okay. Dirt, left top, right top, right top. And we got to update these textures. Left, right. Okay. So, next step. If has tile above me is false, then it's going to do... no, sorry, yeah. If left tile, if there's a tile above it, then just shows the dirt always. Maybe you could like show, I guess you could show dirt or grass on the side. I don't know. I'm not gonna. That's silly. So if it's on top, so there can also be. Let's put. I mean, this is a little bit wasteful. As tile left of me equals if W is, so we're worried about like indexing off the bottom of the array, which is like, you know, if W is 0, yeah, if W is 0, then there's nothing left of it. If W is greater than 0, then we want to check terrain W minus 1, because that's left at our current height, not equal to null. Otherwise, false. And that's the easy side. The slightly harder side is if W is less than terrain. Well, okay, this isn't that much harder. But you can't just use a constant 0. You have to use variables in maths. Okay. So now we say if, oh, you know, there's one dumb edge case where this doesn't catch, is if both corners, oh, they don't even have an image for that. Oh well, it's not going to look quite right. If both corners, like there's a rounded corner on the left side and a rounded corner on the right side, but there's no both, except for this one, but it also has rounded corners on the bottom, which looks, and these ones don't. So that's a little weird. Oh well. So we're just going to say, so this is, so there's nothing above it, but if there's something, if there's nothing left of it, then we're going to do one thing. Otherwise, if there's nothing right of it, we're going to do another thing. Otherwise, we're going to use this guy again. So now we need to just make sure we call the right thing here. So if there's nothing left of it, then we want to have a dirt top left. Oh, left top. That's confusing. Silly name. Okay. Maybe I'll change that later. Do right here. I can't tell if that's working or not. Yeah. Skip. Okay, I mean, so it's using the texture some of the time. Maybe I just can't tell. Is it really that subtle? So if we have a texture that's this big, We're scaling it down. It won't even let me scale it down enough. What about... oh, so many programs. No. Yeah, whatever. Okay, that was a waste of time. Maybe it's working. Maybe it's not. Anyway, like if it was in the real game, I would definitely. Well, hold on. This was 03? No, I didn't want the compressed archive. No. Okay. Just to make sure, I'm gonna make a backup copy of that. And I really like paint.net. It's nice. Let's just really quickly just butcher this file. There we go. There's some artfully done rounded corners. Ship it. Looks good. And this is why I'm not an artist. But if I cared more, I'd probably be able to do something. You know, I'm not really convinced that it's working. I'm gonna say... I'm gonna make this null for now. I really just want to see if this works. I know I'm spending too much time on this thing. Maybe no one cares, but I'd rather, if I try to make a cosmetic change and I can't tell if it's working or not, it's like, it is working, I swear, you just can't tell at all. Am I loading the wrong image? No. Left top. Oh my gosh. I'm sorry. Like I said, terrible at copy paste. Hey, there's my terrible looking corners. That's a relief. Okay. Let's sanity restored. I'm not going to change that image though, because that's a lovely image now. Okay, so let's undo the damage a bit. Okay, so I'm going to see if I can magnify this a little bit. Oh, too much magnification. Too much. 900% is not required. Sorry about that. I'm just... Okay. More? 300%. Okay. So if you zoom in 300%, you can clearly see that these corners are rounded. This one is more rounded. And a little player can still jump. Okay. Exciting stuff. Let's get out of zoom before we make ourselves sick. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is the background. Because this gray background is rather drab. Okay, so I'm going to say planting some lovely grass on top of our dirt hills. Corners work too. Ta-da! Okay. So the first thing is, oh, that was nice. they actually have the different layers here, which means, well, it means you can compose this together yourself, but more importantly, it means you can use parallax, and you can have all the layers moving independently. That sounds cool. I'm not going to do that because I'm feeling lazy at the moment. So, yeah. Let's just BG jungle. And, go away. Okay. Private val background. Jungle slash PNG slash blah blah blah. Same thing again, except I'm going to be more careful this time. Background. 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 Oh, that's confusing. Maybe I shouldn't call the method and the property the same thing. Oh well. That's in there, and most importantly, this is in here. Okay. Texture region, background, no mention of dirt. Okay. So, in game initializer, we're creating everything else here. Might as well create background. And I think this is we're just going to create a single entity. I don't know. I don't know if I should be using entities for everything. Like, they're really handy though. Like, it doesn't have to be things that have visual components or components that behave a specific way. It can just be, it can be almost any sort of game logic. I'm going to get rid of platform. Platform was, before there was terrain. We weren't even, there was nothing else commenting it out. Okay, so the only thing so there's sort of two things about the background that I want to ensure works correctly. Okay, actually, we haven't guessed right now, so thanks for watching. I'll be on a bit later, but I gotta